There, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Please
Very
go
good.
ahead.
Okay, so first up, can you tell me what is this class? What is
This
the
is the
subject of
master.
it?
Well, Marina, what is this class? I don't want to misspeak. I don't know.
It's Master Students Practicum in International Trade.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I wasn't quite sure, and so I put together some slides, um, and we can stick with it. We can go around. We can answer questions. I'm pretty easy there. I love speaking with students. I love questions. So, let's go through it. A little background on me. I ran a group for UBS Investment Bank for almost 10 years that was their primary emerging market research and market entry and problem solving entity. I bought out UBS from this company we created together, and I sold it to Manpower Group, which is the largest global staffing recruiting company. Like they place over 1 million people a year in jobs. And I became a senior executive with them. And got heavily involved in doing economic and workforce development. The two are closely tied, even more so now than ever before. I was CEO of Manpower India. I've worked in over 50 countries around the world, and away we go. Got a long history in Ukraine. I was brought to Ukraine 20 years ago by Vice Prime Minister to write the economic and workforce development plan for Ukraine. But the government wasn't stable at the time, and so things kept falling apart. But I've got a lot of experience here over the years. I'm still in Ukraine. I'm in Ukraine right now. Was asked to come back after the invasion by the U.S. State Department, see if I could help. So I'm walking around and talking to people. I'd like to go ahead and share my deck. And again, I mentioned this before, but I wasn't sure the exact topic for the meeting, so I prepared some basic comments. A couple of things do fit into market entry and investments, these kinds of things. And I can certainly give it that kind of that spin. But a couple of key things we do need to talk about. So if you don't mind, let's jump in and go from there. So first up, I do need to talk about what's happening around the world. So everybody's heard of ChatGPT and these types of tools, right? This is nothing new, right? Okay. You're probably all using them. It's a much bigger deal than people understand. It's not just AI, it's everything. So one is we're expecting that these tools, we call it Industry 4.0. These tools are going to make obsolete over 1.4 billion current jobs. So like jobs that were in high demand over the last 10, 20 years, okay? We're also looking at these tools are creating the demand for an entirely new workforce. It's everything, okay? And we can't transition enough people fast enough. And we're looking at a shortage of skilled talent. People coming out of school now to understand how to use AI, how to use these new things. We're going to have a shortage of over 85 million people by the end of this decade. And it's going to cost global employers between 8.5 to $15 trillion in revenues. So that shortage is already starting to hit now. And the global economy is already suffering. Revenues are already impacted by over $1 trillion to $2 trillion a year. It's pretty crazy. They are going to change everything related to the economy, to the workforce, to everything. So one of the key things that I need to call out is that we're getting into a moment now where elite workers is where it's at. It doesn't matter the price of the worker anymore. So the demand for workers is for elite Industry 4.0 enabled workers, well over low cost. And we're seeing that in hiring patterns. Did you guys see the news? Facebook was offering $100 million bonuses to AI engineers over the last 2 months. It's crazy. I got to tell you what, if I knew AI, I'd be back in Facebook applying for a $100 million grant, bonus. The last point to this is that we don't really know what the future is. We know it's going to be completely different, but the fact is, it's like it really is the internet. People came up with all these crazy ideas and how things are going to work. We got a lot of it wrong. And so over the next decade to 2 decades, we're going to see a lot of turn. It means a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, it's just in the back of your heads. If you're students, I would expect that this is going to be, the theme is going to be lifelong learning and staying, current with what's going on. It's not just about going to university and you're done. It's ongoing skills development and learning for basically the rest of your life. I do want to talk just a little bit more about how advanced this stuff is. Just some things that are just mind blowing. So Google, they have a research AI platform, and there's a big debate going on right now if that platform has reached singularity. And so that term is how the AI community describes the moment that AI becomes self-aware. This is like Terminator, type stuff here. It's absolutely insane. Matrix type movies, coming to reality. We're at that now. This is not 100 years from now or 50 years from now. This stuff is happening now. Okay. Another point is that robots in agriculture, mining, and manufacturing, and most other industries are already cheaper than the lowest cost labor in Africa. Okay. We spent a lot of time doing stuff in Africa. One of the big challenges we had is that when somebody comes through and they're building a new manufacturing facility or a new big farm, it's cheaper to hire to buy robots, or more cost effective to buy robots and let them produce than it is to hire local talent, local people. Just one more point that's just absolutely mind-blowing is that Google will spend over $3.5 billion this year on AI processing and related electricity for the data centers. That's it. 3.5 billion in electricity bill. So just give you an idea how big this stuff is. And if we look at just the United States, for example, if we take our robotics, AI, all these types of tools, and we look at the companies that are leading those charges, and we look at all their partners and these others that are involved with them, the United States will spend over $500 billion this year in research, and that might go up in infrastructure development, and that might go up by another 250 to $300 billion next year. So 750 billion next year. The money and the effort that's going into the space is absolutely incredible right now. Okay. But it is changing things. And there are some things we know. There's a really great story that came up almost 10 years ago. So Nike, pretty crazy brand. The COO at the time was a guy named Eric Splunk. And he was in this big conference, and they just really announced the Flyknit shoes. You guys know what the Flyknit shoes were? Ever seen those things? It's the funky pattern looking things. Anyway, Nike 3D printed those shoes. They're not traditionally made. Okay, that was Nike's the first real shoe that was made with 3D printing. And so Eric was talking about this, and some of the audience jumped in and said, "Well, if you can 3D print shoes, how long is it until people can print it at home?" And Nike, the CEO disclosed that they're working there right now. We're approaching a moment very soon where you can simply scan your foot and then either order a pair to be printed for you, or if you have the right equipment at home, print the shoe yourself. That's coming, okay? And with that type of delivery model, you start to think that manufacturing, a lot of these types of traditional businesses that have driven our global economy for the last 100 years, it's obsolete. So what we're finding is that, and then the Nike CEO made the comment that the future of business is IP, and the future of Nike is intellectual property. Okay, so keep that in mind. Intellectual property is now king. That's the ruler of the world moving forward. Okay, I have a good friend of mine. He's a big shot in business and politics. A guy named David Arkless. He's made several speeches, and he's talked about that if you think about the oil-rich economies like Dubai or Saudi Arabia, with people driving around in Ferraris and Mercedes, Rolls-Royce, the future bright economic stars can be those that produce IP. The 20 years from now, 30 years from now, the rich kids driving around in a $100 million supercar are going to be, inside those cities, those communities where they're producing the top IP in the world. That's the goal. Okay. That is the secret. Okay. Questions so far? It's all pretty basic. Okay. Right now, the global economy will probably end 2025 at about $111 trillion. Okay. GDP total. These technologies, because they're changing the way that things are working. Okay, so just an example, People Republic of China is racing towards something called dark factories. It's where they have no workers working inside these plants at all. They are replacing everything with automation, AI, robotics, and no people inside them at all, so they don't turn on the lights. That's why they call them dark factories. But China is expecting to lose 100 million manufacturing jobs in the next 10 years because of these. That's, you think about that, losing 100 million jobs is catastrophic, but China's doing it because they know they can no longer be competitive. They can't be competitive with an AI robotic, factory sitting in the suburbs of London or New York or some other place where you don't have to pay for tariffs and shipping, those kinds of things. So with that, everything's being fractured right now. So we're looking at least 50% of $111 trillion is going to be redefined in the next decade. So that is an incredible opportunity for places like Ukraine and others to come through and become a new leader. Like those roles have not been finalized yet. There is an opportunity that we need to go after. Okay.
Phil, I wanna jump in here.
Yes.
Follow-up question is
Yep.
why Ukraine and has such a big opportunity as you just mentioned versus
Okay.
countries.
This is where I'm a mathematician and economist by training, and I really like numbers and I really like research, and so I've got a massive amount of data to go through it. But what we do know is this: Ukraine, before the invasion, the tertiary education rate inside of Ukraine was at 83%, and that puts you among the top 20 in the world. Okay. Now, adding to that is that you have a very high STEM education rate, so science, technology, engineering, math. And you combine those together, and it puts Ukraine into one of the top 5 economies that have the raw ingredients to be a superstar inside of this Industry 4.0 type of a world. Okay. Now, we also have some other assets here. The name of the game is getting involved in doing industry type solutions or functional role solutions. It's not necessarily building a new AI engine. It's finding out how to use that stuff inside of industry. Okay. And so just little examples here. We have Ukraine has an extremely lengthy history of agriculture, among the best in the world, right? Black soil, it's famous. The robotic agriculture industry alone is going to be between $50 to $100 billion in the next decade, and nobody's leading that charge. And so we start looking at the raw ingredients that are inside of Ukraine, and we've got the capability to go after those types of solutions and really go crazy. The fact is that given one more dynamic is that the world is also in a grip of a massive skilled talent shortage. And so if you look at the United States, UK, Poland, Germany, France, Italy, a few others, Japan, the existing labor shortage in those countries is larger than the entire Ukrainian labor force. It's over 17 million people. Okay. And so the other challenge we've got is not only do we need educated, tech-enabled, mechanical kind of workers to drive a lot of the innovation, but we need people. And you simply can't find them anywhere inside of the other developed economies right now. And so you look at theoretical growth based off of underutilization of resources. And bear with me on this one. Russia technically, before this invasion, had the biggest upside for growth, but they will never reach it. They have ruined any possible opportunity, and they've been doing so for years. And so we look at theoretical growth of Industry 4.0 type industries. In the Ukraine, before the invasion, was looking at having enough theoretical capacity to be the top growth market in the world. And if you want me to break down that data, I've got it. That's a 2-hour conversation. I can go through it with you. Ukraine's got an incredible opportunity, but there are also some challenges that we'll talk about. Okay? Fair? Okay, big one up is that Ukraine right now is at a tipping point. Ukraine will be a $1 trillion economy. Okay, you have at least 13 to 15 trillion dollars in rare earth minerals inside the ground, and you've got massive agriculture output that the world needs. The question, though, is what will Ukraine be? Okay, is it going to become a farm and a mine, and that's it? That's the low end, or is it going to take people like you, students like you, and really go forth and become a high EP economy with a true global leadership position inside of key industries? Okay. Now, as much as I would like to say that I could define that, or Henry or others, it really is students like you that are going to define that future. It's not us. It's your decision. Okay.
I call it the next generation.
It is. Okay. I can certainly give guidance, and I can set up programs and things that help drive towards this. At the end of the day, it's yours. You collectively believe you're going to do it, and you will. If you collectively don't believe you're going to do it, then Ukraine is going to become a farm and a mine. Okay? Fair? But there are some challenges. We have to talk about some things. Ukraine has incredible potential, but it has not performed traditionally very well. This is before the invasion, okay? Uh, and so the economy should be between 500 billion to 800 billion dollars right now, not 150 to 160 billion before the invasion. And we know why. Back to that slide I was talking about, where intellectual property is the new currency of the world. Ukraine isn't really producing any, and that's a big problem. Okay, you've got the capability, you have the education to do this. You have students coming out of universities that have intellectual property, the capability to produce intellectual property, but the problem is they're leaving. You know, they're going to the United States or going to Poland or Israel or other places. We need to keep people home and start building towards that. Okay, so just some more examples. If we look at IP licensing per capita, you know, intellectual property, the gold that we need to be working with right now is that for the year before, during the invasion, the year after the invasion, Ukraine ranked between Kazakhstan and Namibia. This is not a representation of the capability of Ukraine. And by the way, I'm going to give Ukraine some love here in a second. Let me get to this one slide. I'm going to tell you some good things here, okay? You know, but it's also researchers per million is pretty low. Patent applications per resident is low. You know, Ukraine is not inserting and driving intellectual property-based economy, and we need to, if we're going to turn Ukraine into that high IP and star of the world. Okay, you've got the skills. This is my love. At the time of the invasion, between different companies and projects I've been involved with, I had over 2,500 employees inside of Ukraine. Okay. You know, I've been involved in several different businesses, set up a company here. You know, I've done a lot of policy advisory work to set up programs at universities and others. I've had teams all over the world. And I was the CEO of Manpower India, right? You know, I had teams there. I had people in Colombia and Philippines and everywhere else. My team in Ukraine, the people that I've hired and the people who work for me inside of Ukraine have been the best in the world that I've ever worked with. Okay. Now, part of it's personal style. You know, I just, how we work, how I pretend to work meshes well with Ukrainian culture. But you've got absolutely incredible capability. You know, I'll give you one example of this: is Israel is a booming tech industry, tech economy. They're going to clear probably $15,000 to $20,000 in tech exports per capita this year. Ukraine will do about 150. Okay, so they're significantly more than Ukraine. The problem is that half of the Israeli tech industry are ex-Soviet citizens. It's the ex-CIS states. It's Ukrainian Jewish people that have, you know, went to school in Kharkiv and Kiev, Lviv, and others, and immigrated down to Lviv, to Israel to drive the economy.
And I'm making a bet, as you know, that many of them will be coming back.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope so. You know, but they were there before the invasion, even, right? So we need to get a lot of them to come back and really start building this up. But more importantly, everybody in this video, everybody in this class, we need to keep you. Stay here and change the future. So there is something that's going on right now. There, major companies around the world are forming these collaborative teams. And so the one that I've got up here is Microsoft has pulled together an agriculture technology conversation group. Okay. And they are working with companies like Bayer, John Deere, you know, everybody. And they're defining the future of that industry. It's not just robotics, it's not just AI, but what does that industry look like? What is the entire value chain, like the supply chain, distribution, logistics, energy? You know, what is the role of the marketing person and the accountant inside of this new world, inside of agriculture within Industry 4.0? You know, we've got big ideas and things that are happening right now, and we need to start inserting people like you into these conversations to get the basic information we need to go run with. Okay. So one of the top things that I've seen all over the world, like I spent some time working at Kazakhstan, and they pulled together, they got a massive sovereign investment fund, right? It's massive. And they're dumping money into doing startups. And so you've got these people that might have gone through and got a coding degree, a software development degree, and they're doing startups for energy or agriculture or healthcare. The problem is they've never worked in those industries before. How do you know what to solve if you've never worked in the industry before, right? We need to start getting people into this mindset of looking at these types of companies and partnering up with them. And then to that, my advice, and I'll shut up, I'll start taking questions. And I'm gearing this towards the student side of you. Okay, this is you know, right now in this crazy world, you're hearing all these stories. How do I get a job? What's my career going to be like? Those kinds of things. And so got some advice. Number one is just accept the fact you're going to be a lifelong learner. This is not over. You're not done. You're going to be constantly taking classes and learning new things, and things we think that you should know now and you learn, we might find out in 3 years that it's obsolete. There's something other that comes along. It's just the way that it's going to be. Second up is pick an industry that you're passionate about. Healthcare, it could be entertainment or retail or construction, energy, it doesn't matter. Pick one that you're passionate about. Then go get an entry-level job or get a functional job inside of that. So for example, if you're a marketing student or you're in accounting or legal, go get that functional role inside that company. We start talking about Industry 4.0, people talk about innovation with AI and robotics, those kinds of things. But the reality is most of the spend over the next decade to 2 decades is not going to be in development of AI. It's marketing people retooling all of marketing to use AI. It's going to be people reinventing accounting and law industry and healthcare and these kinds of things. Okay. So go get into those industries and learn everything you can about it. Really study the industry and what's taking place, but also study your functional role inside that space. And then definitely study how these new technologies are changing everything. Then as you start to get that resource base, if you become an agent of change and somebody who's leading the transition, it's going to guarantee that you have a job, but it's also going to be significant for Ukraine. And my last one is this. We need to stay in Ukraine. There's incredible opportunity here. Stay. Learn everything you can about these different industries and start constantly learning and brainstorming how you can transform functional roles like marketing or operations or things like this, but also these industries, and start leading that change inside of Ukraine. And if we do that, Ukraine's got a very bright future. And that takes me to the end.
Thank you very much. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right. I'm going to ask you the first question. You can stop sharing the screen. And guys, obviously, Phil has a global experience, and I want to personally thank you for your passion for Ukraine. It's I know we're going to have many more conversations, but I can see the first conversation. So that's great, and we thank you as Ukrainians, I guess, for what you do for our country. So my big question is this, Phil, is that from the perspective of the transformation you're describing, okay, in your suggestion for Ukraine, what is like in 3, 4, 5 bullet points?
Okay, for Ukrainians or for Ukraine?
Well, it's probably the same, but yeah, for Ukraine, I would say more than.
It's a bigger challenge. So one is that the gap between the current research and development in new technologies and the application of those technologies in industry, that gap is exploding away from Ukraine. It's been doing so for about the last 10 years. The most important thing that we can possibly do is start getting those companies involved, working with Ukrainian academia, the Ukrainian companies, and Ukrainians, and start closing that gap. Okay. And the argument that I've got is that if we go out to those big companies, like if we go to Microsoft and say, hey, partner with us to do R&D, Microsoft gets hundreds of those proposals every day. It's very difficult to sell against that. But we've got the capability of creating a workforce because we have capacity that Microsoft needs. And so if we start there, that is the start, by the way. So we start looking at things like Amazon and others. When they start doing major R&D centers and expanding out, the first thing they're looking for is the workforce. And so if we start bringing those companies in and working with us to build the workforce we need, give you guys additional training, start putting money into it, then we can start to nurture that along into doing real R&D and significant more investment, a lot more FDI than just simply hiring people. It's the most powerful thing we can do. It's the most powerful tool to drive foreign direct investment out there. It's the people.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, guys, questions. Who's going first?
I can go first.
Ivan, I love your initiative. Always first. Go ahead.
First of all, thanks for your presentation.
Yeah.
And my question would be mostly about the AI, and I just want to know your personal opinion, especially as AI is significantly progressing.
Yep.
Don't you think that it's better just to get involved and work within AI and not as the
if we look at statistically, we look at the spend that now bear with me on this one. This is a lot of very smart people that are making this stuff up. We really don't know. Okay. We have guesses. And I think maybe plus minus 20% accurate. Okay. But we think that the money that's coming in is not in developing core AI, and it's certainly not in language learning models or LLM. That stuff is old. We're now into super intelligence. It's a completely different thing. Okay. That is going to be dominated by 4 or 5 companies, and 3 of them are inside the United States. Unless you're camped out of Palo Alto in Google or at Anthropic or Microsoft, one of these types of companies, it's going to be very difficult to get into that space. Okay, but the bigger spend is not on developing those core technologies; it's learning how to use those technologies in marketing to transform
Application level,
marketing,
guys. Full application level.
nursing, healthcare, or financial markets and banking, those kinds of things. And so I would highly recommend everybody get into AI, but I would do it within the context, unless you're a core developer and a hardcore technology guy and mathematician, I would highly recommend that not try to focus on getting into that space. But what you do is you take those technologies, understand what they are, and then start figuring out how to transform the agriculture industry or marketing or legal professions, those kinds of things. That's where the money is going to be.
But do you think that the artificial intelligence will cover all the jobs, or there are some
No.
part that it's
Well, Ivan, let me a second. It's a good your second question. By the way, we have one question per person. There's other people on the call, but great follow-ups on Ivan. Great question and follow-up. And Ilya wrote the question Ilya has is basically in next 10, 20 years, what jobs what industries more specifically will be most impacted by AI?
Every job is going to be impacted by AI. But it's not just AI. You have to include robotics and IoT and everything else inside of this. Okay, every single one will be impacted. Okay, so we've got just by the end of this decade. Okay, let's call it current jobs. Jobs up to today, not jobs.
Phil, I apologize before you continue.
Yeah.
Just to clarify his question, completely replaced by AI, not impacted by. I misspoke. Completely replaced.
What jobs will be completely replaced by AI?
That was Ilya's question. Yes.
Not necessarily completely replaced, but completely transformed. Okay. And so, but again, it's not just AI, it's robotics and everything else. Okay. So we need far fewer people making things on an assembly line. We need people that can maintain and fix and work with robotics. Okay. It's, have you guys played around with the different AI tools to make songs like Suno, AI, those types of things? Okay. So I have 2 university kids, and just for some reason, I think that my job as a father is to annoy them the most I can possibly annoy them. And so I've been making them songs because I think it's pretty funny and they're pretty mad at me for it, right? They're pretty sick of it. Okay. So I can get a tool to make me a song. I have no musical ability whatsoever, and the song sounds pretty good, but I have to have the idea for the song in the first place. Okay. And so it's that innovation, those ideas, and understanding what's going on that we are decades away from AI being able to replace. Okay. So it's innovation, it's that dreaming big, those kinds of things, that's still a critical issue. So that's going to be there. But fact is that every job is going to be affected by this stuff, every single one.
Yep.
So
thank you. Next question, Veronica. Oh, who had a question? I'm sorry, Anton. Veronica, you next.
Yeah, actually, at the beginning of your presentation, you said that Google already spends about 3.5 billion for electricity for the AI. And actually, we all know that AI servers actually consume a lot of resources already. That's why my question is, do you think there will be a possibility of regulations for AI usage, actually? I mean, on government level.
The challenge that we've got is we have kind of 2 worlds, right? Well, 3. We've got 2 that count when we start talking about AI. We have the West, right? I'm going to put Ukraine strongly into this. It's Europe, the United States, Canada, Japan, Korea, Australia, the Western world, the friends, okay? And then we've got China and Russia working with China on that side. And the problem we've got is that if we slow things down and regulate it, China will not. Okay, so there's a massive fear. Now we've got two things that are going on right now. You've got Google, Microsoft, and several OpenAI that is going, fast forward. Then we've also got Anthropic, which is a very important company. If you don't know who Anthropic is, check them out. But they are ex OpenAI executives. It's a brother and sister that started this, absolute genius people. But they're really working on the ethical side of this. And it's not just about regulation, but it's also things like we might be orphaning most of the workers in Africa. How do we go and guarantee those guys have jobs? Those kinds of things too. So, I don't know. We can clamp
We
it
don't know
down,
a lot
but
of
it's
things. What we
yeah,
do know, it's going to change. The
it
change is
is.
coming.
It's
Like,
already changing. Yep.
right, exactly. So Veronica, your last question for Phil. We're gonna let him go.
Okay. So you mentioned that around 50% of the global economy will be redefined in the next decade.
Yep.
So, what specific industries do you think Ukraine has the best chance to lead in during this transformation?
Well, that's a very long answer. So we have some obvious ones. Okay. You've got 15 to 32 trillion dollars of the rare earth minerals inside of the ground. You've also got significant agriculture boost. And so you're going to get a lot of jobs and economic growth coming from those. But that doesn't necessarily mean AI, robotics, big innovation kind of things. But it should. If we go through reconstruction of Ukraine and built these massive mines and things, we have also not turned Ukraine into the Industry 4.0 or R&D center for that industry. We failed. Massive opportunity missed.
Phil, wouldn't that be exactly the opportunity to use that natural resource and to bring innovations, sustainability, and the rest of it that will spark the rest of the growth in the
Yeah.
IP level?
Yeah, I mean, the workforce needed to do, let's just stick with mining for a second, okay? But it's agriculture, it's energy, construction, and several other key industries that are going to be really impacted during reconstruction. We don't have actually, I'm going to go to energy because I know the numbers off the top of my head, okay? We have a shortage of 7 million energy workers right now in the world, 7 million, okay? The workforce that Ukraine needs to rebuild the energy infrastructure within a smart grid, renewable type context doesn't exist in aggregate anywhere in the world. And so if we do not build out training programs in partnership with the largest energy companies in the world, then we have failed, okay? But they are going to do that because if we don't build that workforce here, they can't get billions of dollars in revenues. There's nobody to do the work.
And that's what Phil sold me on, right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And so it's
this is where I have spent decade, and this is why it's important to I will Phil started always learning, and I'm coming back to in a second, is that I have never thought in all the years I've been working towards what I'm doing from that angle. And that field really kind of, changed my opinion how the best way to bring those big guys into this. And that's not through what I have done, which is really much needed for them anyway. But the entry point is exactly the human resource. And the more I hear Phil talk, the more convinced I become. And I'll give you the last question. I started giving it to Veronica, but you raised your hand. So.
Thank you. I noticed such tendencies that every, for example, 2 years, old music stuff become popular. Don't you think that in 5 years AI will be not popular for using in ordinary life because people wanted to see realistic photos, videos, and
okay. So yes, I'm that way. Okay. So I like I'm kind of a nerdy guy. I like watching documentaries and things. So if I get on YouTube and it's an AI video, I hate it. I'll dislike, okay. So I'm the same thing. Okay. I still I'm an old school guy. I like the 1960s and 70s music, these kinds of things. It's authentic, right? So AI stuff just drives me nuts. And so to your point, I think that's true. But that's not actually the majority of language learning model or LLM stuff or generative AI today. Most of generative AI is being used I'll write a report and then I'll ask ChatGPT to go down through and just, error correct it, validate it like a peer review, those kinds of things. It's being used all over the place in business, it's, so there's a lot that's going on there. But we've got an entirely new thing that's coming, and that's called super intelligence. Okay. So generative AI, people really started getting excited about that about 10 years ago. And so even though we're much more powerful now than we were 10 years ago, this is a technology and idea that was generated 10 to 15 years ago. This is old tech. The new thing is super intelligence. And that's where we become, it's a very spooky thing. It's everything. It's not just about writing songs, making pictures, or editing Instagram posts, those kinds of things. It's about full automation of everything around us. It's incredibly powerful. It's exciting, but it's scary as hell as well.
It is scary as hell, but it is very exciting.
Yep.
It just and I want to I feel first again. Thank you. I know we took more time than we expected, but it was fascinating, great. And I want to point out the reason I do what I do and I love what I do, passionate as you can always see, is because on every day I meet people like Phil, who I have not met before, who brings new perspective to my life. And that's why, if you want to succeed in life, I recommend for you to consider working with Economy of Trust, and as Veronica doing already. And me and Phil, hopefully, we start working on a bunch of things together as well.
Big plans together.
Yes, and by the way, I will send you.
Likewise.
I will send you, Phil. I will send you a real world assets tokenization paper I wrote as a draft to review before our call on Saturday. But guys, Phil, thank you again, and I really appreciate you taking time on Thursday night. So
right,
thank you.
No worries, no worries. I love doing this. This is one of the joys of my job, is speaking with students. So
thank you.
all right, thanks.
So, all right.
Have a good day.
So
Good night.
thank you.